for early voting, and you can go to any of them. And then on election day, you're assigned. In some places, even on election day, you can go anywhere. So that is a thing that now most of your counties are going to send you notices. Like, we're already getting mail in Los Angeles giving you this information, but that's a thing you can look up on your Board of Elections site and just see where can I vote, and they'll give you all that information.
Wow. Okay. Wow. You guys, I'm sorry, I'm a processor, so I'm just making sure I don't have any other follow-up questions about all this information. But if you do, again, please just put your questions in the little question and answer box thing. Let me just make sure
And
that
actually,
people don't have any.
someone in the contents just asked a really good clarifying question. So they asked, just for me to clarify early voting in 50 states. It's a constitutional right. All 50 states, all 7 territories, you can vote on November 3rd on election day. But in 47 states and most of those territories, you can also vote early. So it's not an either or. You can always vote on election day. But in almost every state except for 3, you can vote early as well.
Okay. And what about provisional ballots or challenge ballots? I'm just kind of, I seen that when I was researching, and I have no idea what it is. And I've never heard of it before until I
provisional ballots are a thing most people never have to worry about. So that's why you don't hear a lot about them. But basically, when you show up to vote, depending on where you are, they may ask for your ID and you may not have one. Or you may go to the wrong polling place, but you don't want to drive all the way to the right one. Or you may, your signature may not match. Like, there's all sorts of different reasons. Basically, if you show up at your polling place to vote and for some reason they can't give you the regular ballot, because they're like, I'm sorry, you don't have your ID. This is a voter ID state. I can't give you a regular ballot. What they'll do is they'll give you something called a provisional ballot. And what that means is it's exactly the same ballot. It's just a different color usually. You'll fill it out. They'll put it in a separate box. And then you will have a different amount of time, depending on the state, to go to your usually county clerk's office or Board of Elections office and, bring your ID or, cure the ballot in whatever way, try to solve whatever the problem is. And then they'll say, okay, you brought it, we can identify that that's you, and then they'll count it. So it's very rare. There are some states that only have maybe 100 provisional ballots a year. There are some bigger states where maybe they have 100,000, but it's out of millions and millions of voters. It's a way to make sure that people can still vote, and that if they can take whatever step they need to qualify their ballot, that it gets counted.
Okay. But it's very rare.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often.
It's very
and the best way to make sure you don't have to vote with a provisional ballot is to make a voting plan, look up all of the rules ahead of time, write them down and say, all right, I know I need an ID. I know, I need to go to this polling place, right? Make sure you go to the right place. If you make a plan and know exactly what you're supposed to do, then when you walk in, you'll be all set and you'll be able to vote normally.
Okay. What would you say is like the obviously all of it is important to remember, but like, what do you think is like the most important thing to remember when you're voting by mail? Like the little intricate things that people make the most mistakes on.
Read the directions. You guys, I can't say this enough. So the biggest thing people don't do is they don't sign the back of the envelope. You have to sign the back of your vote by mail envelope. It's just a thing you have to do. Over 500,000 absentee ballots were thrown out during the primary season, and a lot of it was because people didn't read the freaking directions. So read the directions, sign the back of the envelope. Don't use hot pink pen. Don't draw pictures on your ballot. The number of people who turn in ballots and they drew Mickey Mouse. Don't do that. Don't draw pictures. Follow the directions. And then look, because in a lot of states, you may have to include a copy of your ID. You may have to get witnesses. You may have to get it notarized. So again, you need to make a plan, because you have to read the directions and you have to follow all of them, or they will not count your vote by mail ballot.
I would definitely be the person that's like signing my signature with hot pink glitter
Please
pen
do that.
and like
If you
heart
do that, I
top.
will personally come for you.
Okay. I mean, five. Wait, you said 500,000, so that's 500, right? I wasn't good at math either. That's why we're in this class. Um, I am so shocked by that, and that was probably
Yeah.
mostly young people. People, we
Yeah.
just be doing that thing. We're
Young
just
people, yep. Young people are 5 times more likely to have their ballots thrown out than any other group. 5 times.
wow. All right, you heard it, so bitches. Read the fucking directions. Read
Yes.
the directions. Okay, that's good to know. Let me think about my next question. Okay, I really want to get into voter eligibility because
Okay.
I I seen this thing where Snoop Dogg said that this would be his first year voting because he always thought that because he was incarcerated before he couldn't vote, but that's not
Yeah.
true, and he found out that that's not true. So what happens if you have like a charge or you've been incarcerated before, or like what makes you eligible in that, and what
Yeah.
makes you not
So
eligible?
I'm gonna give you a website that's really important to remember. RestoreYourVote.org. So RestoreYourVote.org is the Campaign Legal Center's website that you can go on and you can look. They'll guide you through the exact state rules for when you can vote as a returning citizen. So it's important to
Mm,
know in almost every state, except I think two, you can vote as a returning citizen even if you committed a felony after a certain set of rules, right? So usually you have to be off papers. Usually in some places, right, Florida now, we lost a big lawsuit, so you have to pay fines and fees. Like there are different rules. But you can vote at some point. It's also important to know that a lot of times you can vote without following any rules. So we run a program that we're doing this year called Vote by Mail in Jail, where we're helping people who are incarcerated vote because there are actually hundreds of thousands of people who are in jail right now who can vote. So, for instance, if you are in jail because you just can't post bail, which there are hundreds of thousands of people in this country who are just in jail just because they don't have enough money for bail. They haven't been convicted of anything. Well, you haven't been convicted of anything. Almost everywhere you can vote, right? If you're in jail because you convicted a misdemeanor, almost everywhere you can vote. We don't take the right to vote away from people who convicted misdemeanors in almost every state, you know? So it's really important to know that the vast majority of Americans who have served any time can actually vote and can actually vote today. And if you did commit a felony, if there are, some extenuating circumstances, the chance is that you either can vote now or you'll be able to vote soon. And so if you go to restoreyourvote.org, they'll walk you through exactly what those rules are. And a lot of you will be surprised by the fact that you could actually vote this year.
wow, that's amazing. That's great to know. You guys, please take advantage of this website. If you know anybody who has not been convicted of a crime or have been previously incarcerated and is able to vote and needs to know if they are able to vote, send it to them. If you have any loved ones or you got like a pen pal or a friend or your uncle, whoever, send them this website so they can see. That's really, really interesting to know. And I'm really glad that Snoop Dogg is voting this year. Like, go Snoop
Me
Dogg,
too.
you know?
Good job, Snoop.
Okay, and then what is the best way to vote for out of state students? Like
Mm-hmm.
students that are on campus right now, which is kind of confusing, especially with Corona, but like students that are on campus at this moment in
Everything's
time.
confusing this year. I was really confused about this when I was in college. So if you're a student, 90% of the time you have two options. One, you can vote absentee for your home state. So if you're in college in Texas, but you're from Alabama, you can vote absentee for, well, Alabama's a difficult state. Let's say if you're in college in Texas, but you're from Vermont, you can probably vote absentee in almost every state, even probably Alabama. If you're going to be out of town, right? If you aren't going to be in your town on election day, you can vote absentee. You can, however, also vote in the state you're in most of the time because you're a temporary resident. Or at some point, depending on how long you've been in college, you may be a permanent resident. So you have those two options. This is again, and one thing that makes voting confusing in America is that all 50 states have different rules, and then all the counties in those states also have their own rules. So there is very often not a rule that I can say, well, this is for everybody. But what I can do is direct you to the place that will help you. So, this is, again, I know I say the Board of Elections website all of the time. The Board of Elections website is your best bet for information. Also, follow them on Twitter. Boards of elections are really trying to tweet out information, but then nobody follows them. And it makes them very sad. They're really working hard. And they have no followers. So go to your local Board of Elections, follow them, send them some love. They're really stressed right now. They're doing everything. They don't get paid enough, and they don't have enough staff. So follow them, send them a little heart gift. But your Board of Elections will be able to give you that information for your state, and help you figure out. And also, again, do a Goog. Google is your friend, and you can just do a Goog and say, how can I vote as an out-of-state student? And you'll get a ton of different resources and a ton of different guides. But it's important to remember that you can vote as a college student if you're in a different state, and that most of the time you can either vote absentee for your home state or you can vote in the state you're in.
Wow. See, this is why it's so important to have this information, because when I called and I told her that I was like living in between two states, she was like, well, you can't vote in Arizona because that's illegal, and you can't vote in California because you don't have a California driver's license. So I guess you're just kind of out of luck. And I was just like, okay, but this is why we need stuff like this. And this is why we need people like you, because now I have the information and I can share it with my friends and be like, actually, she was wrong. That girl who worked at the Secretary of State office was dead wrong. This is actually what you can do. So thank you for doing that. Okay, so
you would say, I'll say, oh, God.
No, go ahead.
It's important to do your own research because, sometimes we as a voting rights organization will call the Secretary of State office to clarify some information, and they'll give us wrong information. And we may have to call a couple times or get a lawyer to call them to figure it out. And boards of elections offices, they're really overwhelmed, they're really tired, and sometimes someone calls with a complicated problem and they may not know the answer. So it's really important to do your own research, verify. If someone says you can't vote, I always tell people, check 2 or 3 times at 2 or 3 different places to make sure that's true, because you want to do everything you can to make sure that you can vote, and you don't want someone to give you wrong information and that just stop you from voting.
Yeah, 100%. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you. Okay. We're kind of running out of time, so I want to just go a little bit quicker on my end. Okay, I'm getting carried away with the questions. What is on the ballot besides presidential shit?
Oh my God, so much. So the president, it's one line out of a lot. So first of all, local and state elections are so important. 75 to 80% of the decisions that are made that affect your life are local and state. So the president makes big decisions, right? Foreign policy, immigration, and even most of those, 99% of those, Congress has to make those decisions too. And your House of Representatives, that is a local election. But you have governor, which is the president of your state. You have Secretary of State, who is in charge of voting in your state. So it is really important that you know who that is. You know what the comptroller is? The comptroller is the accountant for your state. The comptroller is the person who's in charge of all the money for your state. You kind of want to know who that person is.
That's literally made up. I think